The show will begin in 2 minutes. The show will begin in 1 minute. And now, our feature presentation. Good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday. Hope you had an awesome weekend. I spent it pretty much just working on the channel. Saturday, I recorded 6 videos, and then today I recorded 3. I decided to stop after lunch in my strength workout because I decided that 9 videos in total was enough to cover me through May 8th. You'll get to see me talk about such articles as most Gen Z graduates now think college was a waste of money, how America lost manufacturing, among others. But anyway, how's your Sunday going? How was your weekend? Well, anyway, I thought a good use of live streaming would be to take care of videos that I can't quite classify into a particular subsetting. And oh my god, my monitor is just acting up right now. I can't just disconnect it from my MacBook because then it would disrupt the setup of the broadcast. But anyway, in this live stream, I'm going to read and react to Slate advice columns that I can't quite classify into a single video. A Newsweek article about the Gen Z couple that I wanted to get out there. And I wanted to talk about my plan to return to the movie theater starting at the end of a month from today. No, not to work there, to see a movie that I genuinely want to see on the big screen because, well, some movies are actually made well for the big screen compared to 99% of what's out there. I think I'd rather wait for PVOD rental or streaming like Presents, which I watched last night. On that note, let's get into the first advice article. My mother-in-law has a very concerning suspicion about my son's new friendship. I'm appalled, and my husband refuses to intervene. By Jamila Lemieux. Dear Karen Feeding, my 11-year-old son has always struggled to make friends, but since starting middle school, he's finally found a close friendship with a classmate, a girl who, like him, is pretty shy and shares many of his interests. They've bonded pretty quickly. They even share the same nickname, for example, like Charlie for both Charles and Charlotte. I think their friendship is really cute, and I know that the girl Charlie's parents are really thrilled. And I know that the girl Charlie's parents are really thrilled that their Charlie has a close friend too. My mother-in-law, June, has started making concerning comments about their friendship. She's repeatedly implied in conversation with me that having a female friend at this age means he's gay, and she has also made negative remarks about his friend's appearance. She constantly talks about the girl Charlie as if she's a bad influence and is going to make my Charlie effeminate, sensitive, and gay. To be clear, I find the concept that having friends of a different gender means you are gay is absurd. I don't care what sexuality my children are, and I will love and support Charlie all the same, even if he is gay. Fair point. Just because someone has friend, a platonic friend of the opposite sex, that doesn't make them gay. I mean, look at me. I've got two platonic friends in the Henriotti who are women. It's possible. It can be done. Alright, let's get back to the... Sincerely... Oh, wait. My husband refuses to believe she is saying these things and refuses to talk to her about this. And June won't listen to me. She says she's trying to protect my son and refuses to give up on her negative comments towards me. I don't know what to do right now. I feel like I can't fight back against June without bringing her comments into the fray, which would probably disturb both of my kids, who have a picture of their grandmother as being loving and kind. How do I protect my kids from harmful attitudes when I feel like I'm the only one who has the problem? Sincerely, preparing for an appointment. Alright, let's see what they have to say. Dear Preparing, let June and your husband know that you need to have a talk with them and use that time to discuss June's comments. Repeat all the vile things she said and explain why they bother you so. Tell her that you will no longer sit idly by and let her say those things to you. If she is to bring them up again, walk out of the room. Be clear that you will not tolerate her making these comments to your children, and that if she ever does, she will no longer have access to them. If your husband does not join in your condemnation of his mother's words, you may need to consider how your values regarding parenting align and engage in some difficult, necessary conversations with him about getting on the same page. As far as your kids go, check in to ensure grandmother hasn't already started this line of talk with them. And of course, make sure they are clear that you will love and accept them no matter what their sexual orientations turn out to be. Yeah, that's a pretty fair approach. You just have to set some boundaries. Tell the mother-in-law, this is not okay. This is what we're gonna do. Get on the same page with us or get out. Alright, and now there's another one here in this, which is why I can't just do a single long-form video for each one. Dear Care and Feeding, my son's middle school baseball coach clearly does not like him. The coach is not doing anything to my son that is outright wrong, but I'm noticing little things like bumping him down the batting lineup for no apparent reason, despite him hitting better than kids above him, and skipping over him on the pitching rotation when he is probably the team's second best pitcher. My son is feeling defeated, and we don't know how to help him other than telling him to do his best, try hard, and be a good teammate. As parents, we don't want to really talk to the coach since this is middle school, and we gather it is not appropriate for parents to get involved like that. Any advice? Sincerely, Lost in the Stands. What would be the problem with talking to the coach with it being I mean, is it the middle school team? Yeah, middle school baseball coach. No, I guess it's not the same as, say, a third party community organized baseball league. Although, I would say that since your tax dollars are paying their salary, you could argue you have a right to talk to them, especially if he's coaching your son's team, you know? Maybe he has a reason, maybe he has a eight-dimensional chess plan to win the season, and this is just part of it. Or maybe he's just a jerk. Who knows? Maybe he's taking out his insecurities by making your son not be able to do what he wants to do. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. What I'm trying to say is he's probably insecure about something, and maybe he's taking out on your son by way of what was it he was doing again? Bumping him down the batting lineup for no apparent reason, and then skipping over him in the pitching rotation when he's probably the second best pitcher. Let's see what Karen Feeding had to say. Dear Lost, I'm of two minds here, which may not be terribly helpful. If you can confidently say that this coach is mistreating your child, and I would not say your evidence here is totally conclusive. In fact, these could be totally innocent choices, and you could be a little biased. I'd argue that it is appropriate for you to get involved. However, youth sports coaches are not known for appreciating parental feedback, so it is risky. If you know for sure this guy has been unfair to your kid and you really think it's causing damage, you can schedule a conversation with him. Talk about your observations and ask him directly if there's any issue with your son or anything he's done wrong. Allow him a chance to explain himself and let him know that your son enjoys being on the team, but their interactions often leave him feeling down. Hopefully, the coach will be more mindful of how he treats your son, but conversely, he may further his grudge against him out of annoyance with you. I'd take the risk because it's possible that he may care if parents and kids are frustrated with him. If he doesn't take heed, or if you'd prefer to avoid the conflict, consider finding another team. Let your son know he is going to come across people who may treat him unfairly throughout life, and he shouldn't take his coach's behavior personally. Continue to encourage him to be the best teammate he can be, and if the situation becomes intolerable, leave. I don't know how easily you can leave a school sports team. I was never on one, so I have no idea how that works. I'm pretty sure you can get into some kind of trouble if you made the commitment but then are choosing not to show up for whatever reason. Again, I had no involvement in any of this, so I have no idea how any of this works. Dear Karen Feeding, my wife and I are at odds over a prank our 11-year-old son, Jasper, played on his uncle. On Saturday, the family had a barbecue and invited many of the relatives over. My brother, Richard, is in the habit of getting plastered and passing out at these events, and this time proved no exception. Jasper spotted Richard sprawled in a lawn chair and decided it would be funny to grab a marker and write, "Insert brain here," on Richard's cheek with an arrow leading from the words to his ear. He then uploaded some of the images onto his social media page. Now my wife wants to ground our son from his internet and phone privileges for the next 2 months. Frankly, I thought it was a good lesson for Richard against drinking to the point of unconsciousness. The rest of the family also thought it was hilarious, so I don't think there should be any consequences. Who's writing this? Sincerely, come on, honey, find the funny. As much as I personally agree with teaching a hard lesson about the consequences of drinking alcohol, not just to the point of passing out, but also just for drinking in general. Obviously, as I've said in my videos, I'm going to say it here. If I hosted a party, there would be no alcohol, or if it had my name on it, same situation. Like if it was my event, no alcohol or no event. You choose one. That being said, though, yeah, I still think the kid has to learn some kind of consequences for doing that because there are far worse things people have done to other people who have passed out drunk. So, Bessie learned now not to take advantage of someone who's inebriated. Let's see what the Karen Feeding had to say. Dear, come on, honey. While Richard certainly shouldn't be passed out drunk at a family barbecue, or in my opinion, not drinking, period, it's not cool for your son to feel comfortable mocking him like that. He didn't simply make fun of him in front of the family, he took it to social media. What if Richard became a meme? Maybe you'd find that funny too. And hey, I'm not saying what your son did wasn't funny, but it simply wasn't age appropriate. However, I disagree with your wife that he deserves a serious punishment for it. That would be sending him a really conflicting message after your family cheered him on. Instead, I think the two of you should simply tell your son not to do anything like that again, and not to post embarrassing pictures of people on social media. Talk to him about how Richard might feel if his coworkers saw that. I'd hold off on a punishment this time, but once he's been warned, he should be held accountable if he does anything like this in the future. Okay, letting him off with a warning, not a bad idea. But he still needs to, as long as he understands that you shouldn't take advantage of inebriated people because that is not the only kind of situation where people who have been inebriated have been taken advantage of, which is why I always say about alcohol, stay the hell away from it. All right, let's read another one. Main headline is, "My friend keeps doing a really awful thing in front of our kids. I need this to stop. This isn't healthy for any of us," by Nicole Chung. Dear Karen Feeding, I know the general rule is don't comment on other people's parenting and don't give unsolicited parenting advice, but can you ask a parent to change the way they behave in front of you and your kid? I have some friends, Ello and Raven, whose 3-year-old Jax is one of my 3-year-old's best friends. Ello and Raven divorced when Jax was about 1.5. Thank God, because the tension was through the roof when we all hung out. I love hanging out with Ello and Jax, but I really struggle when I spend time with Raven. Jax has autism and some developmental delays, but in many ways they also behave like any other 3-year-old. Jax is verbal, responds to questions and redirection, and is constantly learning and changing. Every time I see them, I can tell they've made leaps in their development, even if their speech and reactions are not the same as a neurotypical 3-year-old. But Raven is always making comments in front of Jax and my child about how Jax doesn't understand anything that goes on around them and constantly compares our kids. Oh, it's so nice that your kid takes turns, is calm, and knows their name. Jax doesn't know how to do that and probably never will. It's painful to witness because it's so clear that Jax understands everything, even if their responses are not exactly the same as my kids. I'm sure it's self-preservation from having a child with more challenges than Raven expected, but Jax is a smart, sweet kid, and Raven needs to see that. I don't want my child to hear Raven comparing them to Jax. I don't think it's appropriate, and I want them to stop doing it. I also want them to stop telling me Jax doesn't understand anything. Can I ask for these boundaries to be in place when my child and I are present? I'm thinking of writing Raven a letter, because they generally don't respond well to feedback. It also doesn't feel appropriate to involve Ello, even though Ello is also Jack's parent, because Ello and Raven are divorced. Signed, Kids Shouldn't Be Compared. Yeah, this, I don't know if that's a good idea to compare the kids. I mean, at a certain point, you might have to. I think you might have to not hang out with them. I'm sorry, but if they're not willing to change, if they don't take well to criticism, you're gonna have to find new friends. Let's see what Nicole had to say. Dear shouldn't be compared. That would bum me out too. As the fellow parent of an autistic child, the most generous, possibly too generous, interpretation I can muster is that Raven must be in pretty ableist medical and or educational environments that encourage them to do exactly what they're doing, compare their kids to others, and pay more attention to deficits than strengths. Of course, Raven is allowed to have feelings about Jax's autism or the support they need. And sure, at least some of Raven's comments are probably the result of processing those thoughts and feelings aloud with someone they assume will be somewhat sympathetic. You. But that's what you feel, and then there's what you do with those feelings. Raven is making whatever problems she's having with Jax's problems, too, and yours. It just isn't appropriate to vent your fears or frustrations about your disabled 3-year-old in front of said 3-year-old. Sorry, but you've got to pick a different time, a different place, a different way. When encouraging ableist parents, and it's always sadder but unsurprising to me when they have disabled kids themselves, I usually go with one of two options. The easy one is distance. If the relationship isn't super important to me, I might just let it go, because my time is finite and I don't need to expose myself or my kid to any more ableism than we already encounter. The other option is, somewhat grudging, education. I don't mean that I try to engage them in Disability 101 or whatever, but I'll correct false assertions or push back when needed. I might go so far as to explain why something they said about autism is wrong, or perhaps cite a sort like the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. I also had to ask if some parents to talk to their own kids about ableism after those kids said or did something harmful to my kid. Sometimes, though, these things lead us back to distance, either because the other parent slash family's ableism is a deal breaker for me, or because the other parent just finds me super annoying. This is all to say that if you don't want to hear ableist stuff from a fellow parent, and you don't want your kid hearing it, either, or taking your silence for agreement, I think it's okay for you to say something. I don't even really think it's about Jax's parenting. It's more about how you want to parent your own child. You seem to want them to appreciate and enjoy all kinds of people. You don't want them to grow up ableist. You don't want them to think the worst of Jax or other kids like them. You want them to respect and see whatever is good in every kid they meet and not assume that autistic or disabled kids can't be smart or fun or wonderful friends. You can think about whether you really want to try to let Raven know about those things you want for your kid and how, in a letter, in person, parent to parent, etc. But as you probably already know, it might not lead to the outcome you want. Raven might not be in a place where they can hear what you're saying or view their situation differently. They might also get mad at you no matter how kind or careful you try to be. And in the end, they're going to parent how they choose to parent, and they and Jax will bear the consequences. If they keep making their ableist remarks and it turns out to be a deal breaker for you, then you may need to decide whether your kid mostly sees Jax during Elo's time rather than Raven's. You don't have the power to change Raven, but you do get to choose what you're willing to put up with and what you want your child to hear and absorb. You can only control yourself. That's all I've got to say about that. Dear Karen Feeding, my good friend recently lost her infant son after 8 weeks in the NICU. It was obviously devastating. My heart is broken for her. I live on the other side of the country, so I haven't been able to be as present as I would like. I'm planning a trip over the summer to her coast, and I definitely want to see her, but I'm struggling with how to plan a trip without overburdening her and her husband. Normally, I would just ask to stay with them for a few days, but I don't know if they would want a house guest. But I also think she might be upset if I say I'm staying at an Airbnb in their town. They live pretty far away from other friends I could stay with, but it wouldn't be impossible to meet for lunch somewhere in the middle. How can I plan this trip to maximize support but minimize stress for them? I just want to give her a hug and make them a meal. Signed, Too Timid to Ask. I think let them know that you're coming. See if they offer. If they offer, accept. If they don't, just get the Airbnb, and then if they ask, you just let them know you wanted to give them space. Now let's see what Nicole had to say. Dear Too Timid, it's kind of you to want to offer in-person support to your friend, assuming she is open to it. I understand why you might prefer not to ask, but in this case, I think there's no avoiding it. Not if you actually want to ascertain and respect her wishes. Unless you talk about it with her, you're reduced to guessing. I really can't imagine a friend being offended by your wish to see her and cause as little stress as possible. And I think you can try to bring up the possibility of a visit in a way that puts the least amount of pressure on her. First, let her know you're planning to be in the area and you'd love to see her if she has time. And then just make it clear that you'd be open to doing so in a way would be best for her. Perhaps something like, "Of course, I'd be glad to stay with you, but I'm also very happy to stay somewhere else if that's easier. I can come over and make a meal, or we can meet for lunch if you'd prefer." Think about it and let me know. I hope to see and catch up. I'd also have this visit be as easy for you as possible. I'd try to have the initial conversation soon, slash several weeks before you travel. Then your friend will know all the Oh, come on. Sorry, it messed up for those of you just. It shifted it for those of you just listening. I'd try to have the initial conversation soon or several weeks before you travel. Then your friend will know all the options and have time to think it over. She won't feel the pressure of needing to answer right away. She can let you know how she's feeling about the visit and what she'd like to do as your trip gets closer. Not too different from what I suggested. I would have waited for them to offer after just saying, I'm going to be in the area. This way I could say, you never offered. Alright, next one. Dear Karen Feeding, my 2-year-old is on a pretty hardcore napping strike right now after being a reliable 2-hour napper for many months. The switch was sudden despite no major life changes. She is my 4th child, so I know a lot of the recommendations already. Keep nap time consistent, darken the room, remove distractions, and follow them. I just have not had a child do this before. I have a childproof lock all over the doorknob, and she will stay in her room for over an hour to rest. She rarely sleeps. I plan on to keep enforcing rest time and hope she goes back to napping eventually. But in the meantime, do you know anyone who has had a similar experience and lived to tell the tale? Did their kid go back to napping? Dear Slumber Management, I have been there. My younger child was never a great napper and gave it up somewhere between 2 and 2.5. We referred to that last hour or so before her 7 p.m. bedtime as witching hour because, well, none of us were at our best. In our case, once the nap was gone, it never came back. But of course, it's possible that your child is just on a nap strike and will eventually go back to sleep during the day. Whether that happens or not, I think trying to preserve at least the idea of nap time, creating the ideal nap time conditions, still makes a lot of sense. If your 2-year-old doesn't fall asleep, the chill quiet time is probably good for her and for you. It can also flow nicely into her having chunks of increasingly independent time when she doesn't expect you or anyone else to entertain her. I have no comments on this whatsoever because I barely understand half of what they're saying. Alright, I was gonna read this one, but I think we can just move on to my next part of How about we move on to the Gen Z couples article? Gen Z couple visit grandma. Internet not prepared for one household rules by Alice Gibbs. When Clementine Doyle and her fiance traveled to visit her grandmother, they knew what to expect. Warm hospitality, cups of tea, and because her grandmother is a devout Catholic, 2 neatly made single beds. Before we go any further, I'm just going to say Grandma's house, Grandma's rules. Though the couple live together and are engaged, Doyle's grandmother insisted on separate sleeping arrangements for their stay, something the 25-year-old shared to her TikTok account, at Hope Clementine, in a video that has captured widespread attention. Staying with my very Catholic grandmother, and she is making us sleep in separate beds. We live together. We're engaged. He's 28, the caption read. The video, which Doyle says was meant to capture a happy memory, quickly went viral, drawing nearly 5 million views and prompting a flurry of online commentary since being shared last week. Responses range from amused and nostalgic to critical, with some calling the grandmother's request outdated or even disrespectful. Her house, her rules. We thought it was sweet and a little amusing. It's certainly quaint, but we knew it was coming, Doyle from the UK told Newsweek. I'd even forewarned my fiance, and he was undeterred. In fact, he was the one who suggested we make the trip. For Doyle, the gesture was less about control and more about tradition. Her grandmother, who was born in 1940 and still attends Latin Mass, just like Mel Gibson. No, really, he attends Latin Mass. For those of you who don't know, that's the sect of Catholicism that broke off after the Second Vatican Council. Long story short, they weren't exactly happy about the changes they made, like holding mass in the vernacular language, because up till then, it was always held in Latin because, well, that's what language it was made for. But I digress. Maintains a worldview shaped by a different era. When values like these come from a place of love and care, I find them easy to accept, Doyle explained. It was just one night. After all, it did no harm. As the video gained more attention, people shared their thoughts in the comments, and they were divided. Granny's house? Granny's rules, said B. Marie, who thought the request for separate beds was completely fair. Hey, so did I. But not everyone agreed. Viewer Deirdre Lynn wasn't impressed and wrote, "That's incredibly disrespectful on your grandmother's part. I'd be getting a hotel and not visiting." Respectfully, I would take this as the grandmother doesn't respect you. You're grown adults, said M's underscore 597. But viewers like Loud's VidSon Walker thought it was positive. I love this. A fellow Catholic here, and I will be the same with my kids. Doyle, who was raised Catholic and still attends Mass with her grandmother, says religion provides her with a sense of grounding and connection to her roots, but she also draws a clear line. I reject, loudly and unequivocally, any teachings that promote fear or division. Those distortions are the product of human failings, not the essence of spiritual belief. What started as a lighthearted video has sparked deeper conversations about religion, respect, and the way generational values intersect with modern relationships. Many people saw it for what it was, a sweet, quintessentially grandma gesture, Doyle said, but clearly this small moment resonated far beyond what I anticipated. As the Catholic Church looks to the future, with a new pope to be chosen, Doyle hopes that the institution can continue evolving in the spirit of compassion and inclusion. For Catholicism to flourish in the modern age, it must continue down the path Pope Francis has laid, she said. What do I want to say? I mean, on the one hand, I'm all Granny's house, Granny's rules, and I also personally am not against couples who sleep in a bed together when they're not married, because at that point you're in a stable, secure relationship. That's what matters. As far as I'm concerned, marriage today is literally just the government contract. You could literally go to a church at any point in time and still get married in the eyes of God without having to be in the government contract. Though they'll probably treat it like that regardless. What else was I gonna say? Um, oh, also at a certain point, my disagreement with this way of my my disagreement with the church on that particular behavior, and my agreement that two consenting adults can do what they want, is exactly why I decided I'm just gonna not call myself a Catholic, because I understand that at a certain point I'm modifying things so much in my favor that at this point I may as well just not call myself one. Not because anyone particularly told me that I had to pick a lane, if you will, but because that's just how I roll. If you want to handle it the way that you're handling it, I respect your decision. Just like I respect your decision not to wait till marriage, if you know what I'm talking about. Well, anyway, I think I'm gonna leave the articles there for now. Save some for feature videos. And now I want to talk about how I'm finally going back to the movie theater as a customer for the first time since my birthday. 4 months ago next week, this week. So, Mission Impossible 8's tickets go on sale tomorrow. I am I looked at the show times because my theater chain's website has the show times up, but they don't have their premium format ones ready to go. It's not IMAX, it's their own thing. Showcase. Shit, so show is what I was saying. So X Plus is what I want to see it in, because that's what my usual theater has. I mean, it would be pretty cool to go to the 2 p.m. Thursday IMAX showing, but I decided that what I'm gonna do for movie tickets until I have the money to burn is I'm going to buy two Bargain Tuesday tickets. That's $5 if it's $5 each if it's generally across the board. 10 no, $7 total for per ticket for X Plus, IMAX, etc. My plan is to get two of those for every single one, and then either someone is going to come with me, which looks very unlikely because both my friends who I tried inviting to this particular movie have things they have to do on Tuesday nights. So I don't hold it against them. I am just going to get my pair of tickets because I want to guarantee an empty seat on my left. I don't know, that's the one where I feel less crowded in. So I'm like, two of them, 10 for regular, 14 for premium format, still costs less than a matinee showtime. So last I checked, it was 17.25 for the premium format, 13.25 for regular. So that means for less than the price of a usual ticket outside of Tuesday, I can buy two and guarantee an empty seat next to me for a grand total of about $3 less. Six or seven if I go after 6 p.m., but I'm thinking maybe early afternoon so that I can more easily walk home, not be tempted to spend any more money beyond just the tickets, a small popcorn, and a bottle of water. And only those four items. When I say four, I say two tickets, one popcorn, one water bottle. So yeah, that's my plan with that. I'm going to see Mission Impossible 8. I have no intention of just I have no intention of missing out on that one. Actually, I'm going to pull up the other ones. Most movies that I want to see are going to be in X Plus anyway, or I would assume they will be, because that's how you know that it's actually big screen worthy, at least in terms of visual aesthetic. Except for Red One, which thankfully I waited till that was on Prime Video. So yeah, my schedule is the Tuesday after release, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, Karate Kid Legends, Ballerina, Jurassic World Rebirth. Just had to change the date because I originally put the Wednesday release date for that. Then I was like, nah. Then we had Superman, and then I'm taking a break until October with Tron Ares being my return. Oh, I gotta scrub Animal Friends because anything that, again, anything that is not a truly big screen worthy experience is gonna have to wait for PVOD. No, I'm not apologizing for that. Nope, I'm not. The reason I'm also doing this two tickets thing is so I'm not tempted to end up spending even more money by going to see a second movie and getting a second small popcorn 20-ounce water bottle. So yeah, my current plan for the rest of the year is Mission Impossible 8, Karate Kid Legends, Ballerina, Jurassic World Rebirth, Superman, Tron Ares, Wicked for Good, and Avatar Fire and Ash the Tuesday after, because Online Movie Critic is going to be posting a review of these most likely, which means if Online Movie Critic confirms that they are hot garbage, I can easily just hit refund on my app and then just spend my Tuesday doing something else, like working on YouTube videos or playing a video game. I mean, in June I've got the Switch 2 coming in. Walmart had better not cancel on me. I actually watched the, what was his name? I actually watched the video from Jake Randall. Here, I'll put it on the screen. When is the next Switch 2 pre-order wave plus pre-order cancel information? Yeah, that's very cheerful for someone who is very happy to get a pre-order in at Walmart when he did. I mean, I took forever to close the confirmation page just because I can't bring myself I couldn't bring myself to wonder if maybe I did something wrong. But no, I have it confirmed. Walmart will be delivering my Switch 2 that first week of June. Right now it's saying it's arriving on June 6th at the earliest, but they're probably going to bump that up. I hope. Yeah, he explained this whole thing about how Walmart's going to send them out to the closest stores, and then the closest stores are going to send out the people who deliver like the Walmart Plus stuff and such in sealed packaging that apparently I'm going to have to show my ID for to verify that it is me. I mean, I would have thought they would just use UPS or FedEx. I'm actually gonna double check. I actually want to see. It says I'm not gonna show you it, but yeah, it says pre-order arrives by June 6th. Nothing about how the package will be arriving, but obviously this is someone who seems to know what they're doing. But anyway, the point is, Mission Impossible 8 is finally getting me back into the movie theater. I mean the traditional movie theater, not like the Martian at the museum, as I called it, because that's not a traditional movie theater experience because they don't have the food and they don't have well, some theaters like the AMC at the Boston Common, they don't have the reclining seats. They still have the old fashioned seats. The Mugar Omni Theater has the older ones. They probably don't really need to go out and renovate these on account of the fact that most of the time they're showing 45-minute documentaries. So they really don't have a reason to reduce the number of seating by putting in the Lux seats, which is what happens when you make these seats the way they are. Quality over quantity, but you can't sell as many tickets. Not to mention, again, with the Mugar Omni Theater, you're usually only in there for 45, 50 minutes. My situation was a very unique exception, or, well, it was unique in the fact that it's the only time they're planning to show The Martian, whereas they had Inside Out 2 over there pretty regularly last summer, which I'm starting to think been like some might have been rationalized as there's some educational value to it with the way it depicts the human mind working. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, before I go, I think I'll just ramble on about how I've been playing around with different types of pizza from my homemade pizza dough. Yeah, that's right. I'm no longer limited to just traditional pizza sauce, cheese, and pepperoni. Last week, I made a barbecue cheeseburger one by cooking up a burger and then using barbecue sauce instead of regular pizza sauce, and then topping it with chunks of the burger patty and some pickles. I threw all that on top of it, put it in the oven, and it was good. But the real hero was the buffalo chicken one, which I finally perfected. You writing this down? I'm going to tell you how last night's went. So basically, Thursday and Friday, I decided to make one each, and then I used the I used the usual circle pan, but I had to use the full size oven. Whereas I wanted to use the toaster oven, so I used the 9-inch pan. So basically, I just substituted the pizza sauce for buffalo sauce, and then what I did was I bought some Perdue chicken nuggets. They're refrigerated ones, so that I could take them out of the thing and chop them into smaller pieces, and then cover them in buffalo sauce, and then top them on the pizza. What I found out was the key to having it stay in place for the most part was to add a extra quarter cup of cheese on top of the chicken to the half cup of cheese that I initially put on as I usually do. So yeah, there's that. On that note, I'm going to leave it here for the live stream. Be sure to give it a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I'll see you soon.